conference meeting of July 10th, 2012. Can you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, silent, followed by a moment of silent reflection and honor of all those that are serving to defend our freedoms. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lisa, can you please read the Open Public Meetings Act announcement?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Mount Olive Township, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call.
Mr. Perkins, Mr. Mania,
Here.
Mr. Frente,
Here.
Mr. Nicastro,
Here.
Mr. Walsh, Mrs. Laybow,
Here.
Mr. Roman.
Here. Let the record reflect that Mr. Perkins and Mr. Walsh are excused. All right, the first item on the agenda is discussion for the request for a digital sign. Mr. Kenny.
I'll take that, actually. We had discussed some time back, as you all know, the sign that was there was demolished as a result of an accident. I think it was during the October snowstorm. It was a wood sign. And my thought process was that we would be best served over the long haul by having a digital sign which would be able to provide information to the residents on any number of different fronts, council meetings, health department, police department, whatever the case may be. The cost is somewhere in the, what's the number, 30 to $45,000. I've heard criticism from a number of different people that think it's too expensive. It's not the right spot for a digital sign, and I'm open to changing it. If it gets voted down, we'll look at the next option. It's not something personal, so everyone should vote their conscience on it.
Yeah, I mean, I for one like the idea and the concept of the sign. Definitely, the cost is the first thing that caught my eye, and the location just to me does not receive a ton of traffic. It is something that I would definitely entertain revisiting once we're out of this fiscal downturn that we're in. Because I do agree that it would be beneficial to the residents to be informed, especially on last minute things, and direct them, where to go. So, but I know at this time, I'm not comfortable with the price tag. Ms. Laybow?
I think it's actually a really good location for a digital sign, and we have the trailer with the digital sign in the front many times when we have the rabies clinic and the health, the shots that we give and that type of thing. And it kind of looks a little bit tacky having the trailer out front, and it'd be nice to have the sign and have the updated information. And it does get a tremendous amount of traffic, this road, between the high school or the middle school, people coming through from the high school, people coming from work. I mean, there are some days this road is traveled very, high traffic areas. So I think it's a great idea. Yeah, 30,045 is a little bit high, but in the long term, I think it serves us well.
Mr. DeCastro?
I agree to the sign. I think the sign's a great idea to have. The price is always the issue today. We've heard from some residents, obviously, the criticism. But I would be in favor of a sign if maybe we could look at some alternative ways to get it funded. There might be some alternative ways, maybe not, but I think we might find some creative ways to get it funded somehow. The location is fine there, and who knows if it's funded, we might be able to do a dual sign somewhere else at the same. But I like the idea of the sign because I think it's important to have something not only that just looks good, but also gives the information out. But find a way to try and be creative to fund it possibly.
Fred, are we allowed to say have a corporate sponsorship on that kind of sign? Like say we reach out to one of our corporate entities here in town?
Yeah, but if you're gonna do that, you'd have to give everyone an opportunity to essentially bid on that. Yeah, you'd have to put together basically a specification for everyone to bid.
Okay.
About to bid.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. I am not in favor of doing I'm in favor of doing corporate type back and forth between private and public partnerships on almost everything that we do in town, whether it's signs up at Turkey Brook, whether it's landscaping ideas that we've been coming. This is really the gateway to our municipal building. And I don't believe that the sign should be an advertisement for a business in this particular instance. I think it's rather short-sighted not to go with something that can provide information. We've often been criticized on a number of different occasions in terms of what we can put out there to our residents. I bet that the cost of a wooden sign that we would put out there would probably be somewhere in the $20,000 range when all was said and done. I don't think that the sign is terribly expensive as it is the whole apparatus that goes with the sign. You'd have to put in the brickwork and make it look appropriate for a municipal building, especially of a municipality the size that we have. And you have to look at the fact that it would be bonded over a 20-year time frame, so that the cost to the taxpayer would be, and I don't mean to minimize, because we always talk about the fact that everything is incrementally, when you add it up, it becomes a big number. But ultimately, I think that it would be short-sighted to get something that just simply says Mount Olive Township. We had that metal sign out there for a while. It was not becoming of the township, and you're going to spend significant dollars on something that ultimately is going to have limited impact and limited use. We can put that metal sign back up that says Mount Olive Township. It's the same as, in my opinion, it's the same as a wood sign. It doesn't educate the public over a 20-year time frame as to what's happening in the township and the message that we need to get out. So that's why I thought it was important. I understand it's a big number, but I thought that it was a number which was well spent at the end of the day. And again, it's not something which is personal to me. If we decide that we're not going that route, then we'll go look into a decorative wooden sign that's appropriate for the township. And my guess is that it's going to be a big number too, and you're not going to get any benefit out of it at the end of the day. And that's why I thought that this was the right path to go.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing, that I'm in favor of the sign, but I don't like the cost for the sign. And I was going to, basically ask what the price difference would have been if we would have replaced it with another wooden sign. If we're talking about another double the amount or not. So I guess, that's still up in the air. But.
Mr. Mania?
Don't the signboards give the information that we got through a grant? Don't they give the information that's to the public?
They absolutely do. They're moved around. It's not something that you expect to see in one particular location. Sometimes they're on 206. Sometimes they're used for other things, like it's a different type of communication. I think they're great too. But it's not something which is permanent, where a resident every time they come by is going to see all of a sudden Carnival July 11th through the 15th, or come in and get your dog licenses, or flu epidemic in town, or whatever the case might be, that we wanted to educate the people that it would be a permanent location. And I don't know what the cost ultimately would be of the sign. We've estimated the number. If we can get DPW to do some of the work, perhaps we can get the sign itself for approximately the same price. This is not unique. A lot of other towns, I think Mount Arlington has 2 of them. I just drove by one in Livingston. That they have one on Route 10. I'm sorry, on Livingston Avenue. And if council is so inclined to go to a freestanding wood sign that serves no other purpose but to identify the building, then that's the route that we'll go.
Mr. Kenny?
I didn't finish it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Mania.
Can we get a cost for the wooden sign? I mean, is this all speculation? $8,000 to $10,000 for a wooden sign? Is that speculation, or do we know that for fact?
I don't know what the cost. I didn't look into it. It's not something that I was in favor of. But if that's what council wants to do, then that's what we'll look into. But what I suggest you do is that you approve the change to the ordinance, and we won't spend it until we get a full approval from the council, so that we can decide on which sign we're going to have. And if we don't spend the capital number, at the end of the day, no harm, no foul.
Mr. Kenny?
As I said, we won't spend it unless we get approval from the council.
Right. I would be hard pressed to spend that money when, in light of the fact, we laid people off from township. We laid township employees off, and to spend that kind of money, I would be hard pressed to be in favor of it.
If council's in favor, we could separate out the bids and kind of act as our own main contractor on this. Oftentimes, on bids such as this, the sign company will bid the jobs and sub out the work, such as the masonry and the wiring, that sort of thing. if council so wishes, we could prepare, we already have an electrician under, from a past bid, but the other parts, the masonry and the actual sign itself, we could send out 2 to 3 bids and bring back various prices. We would, in essence, act as the contractor, which we are perfectly allowed to do under local public's contract law. It may reduce the cost, and council always has the option of rejecting those bids. If it's over what is estimated or budgeted, you can always reject it under New Jersey local public contract law.
Sean, where do you envision the location of this sign?
Somewhere out front. I don't have an exact location. I'd have to
So
speak.
not at the intersection, obviously.
No, I would rely, I guess, on Mr. Brzezinski, our engineer, somewhere along the frontage here. I'm not the expert in that. I guess the sight lines would have to be considered, and traffic flow, and something that wouldn't prohibit effective turns at the intersection.
And God forbid there was an accident, I'm sure insurance would be covered to replace it in full.
Well, you might be able to put it right at the intersection, not that I'm suggesting this, but as a possibility, right at the intersection of Wolf Road and Flanders, Drakestown.
Right, but, and I'm assuming this would be covered, God forbid there was an accident, it'd be covered fully with insurance.
As was our last sign.
Okay.
And we
Sure.
will be collecting money, but the problem is that when you collect money from an insurance, it goes back into it goes back into surplus.
Sherry, could you just, if you could quickly tell me what the cost would be per year if we approve this increase in the bond ordinance?
It depends.
Assuming worst case scenario,
It depends.
$50,000.
Assuming 50,000, it depends what the estimated useful life is. Are you getting a wood sign, or are you you're talking about
Getting this sign.
that sign? So you're probably looking at a useful life of maybe 10 to 15 years, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say maybe 5,000 a year, let's say.
So, $5,000 a year.
Yeah,
Ms.
5,000 a
Labow?
year.
Yeah, I was just going to also point out that at the high school, they had this old sign that was there, and they'd have to, go out and manually change the message. And I know with the Mount Olive High School Parents Club, we were helping for years to, collect enough money, raise enough money to buy the new one. And finally, Mr. Stansberry was able to get enough, to put the sign up. And it's been a huge asset to them to constantly have all the new messages up there, let people aware. You drive by, you see what's going on. And I think it's informed the public more so than any other thing, because you're driving right by and you see everything that's happening.
The only thing I would say about that sign is, you're driving by at 35 miles an hour. I don't think you have much time other than to read, be first, be strong, or last, or something like that. I don't even remember it.
I know,
Soon you'll read it next week when it's 25.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but it's on a curve. I mean, you're not really going that fast, but it's very effective.
Well, now the speed limit's going to be lowered around there.
25, you'll be able to see it.
Mr. Ferrante?
If we do the sign, the electronic sign, and we have, or go through with the process of the solar within the municipal building, would that cover the sign as well?
As far as the electric generation on that, I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't know the answer to that.
I think the electric itself is kind of a de minimis cost.
No, I know.
And speaking to Sherry, her suggestion is let's get authorization from council to go out to bid on the project. Let's see what bids we get back, and whatever number we get back, it can either be rejected or accepted.
I think that's a good.
Yeah, I'm definitely more inclined to let's
that's
increase
a
the
good-
bond ordinance,
that's a fine
and then
one.
that way at least we have approval for it.
I mean, we don't have a number right now. We keep saying 30, 40, 45,000. My thought is, let's go out to bid and see what the number is, and then if you don't like it, then you're rejected.
I'm not looking, and I never would spend money that council, the majority of council didn't approve of. So we're looking to move it forward, and ultimately, if we don't get a number that it's acceptable, then we will look at an alternative option. My recollection is that the old sign that got knocked down is probably 15 grand. I don't know where I came up with that number, but that's my recollection. And you know what, I'll have Sean go out and price a wood sign too as we move
Yeah.
forward.
Give us a comparison so we can make an
The one thing I
intelligent
can-
decision.
The one thing I can tell you is that the sign that we had there was not appropriate, and I took it down. Because I'd rather have nothing there than that little metal sign with, that just is not appropriate. So that's where we're at. We're gonna have to do something, and whatever council wants to do at the end of the day, my preference is the electronic sign that can be changed from within.
Does anybody else have any other questions? That's good. Okay. All right, our next item up for discussion is the traffic safety plan. Mr. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. President. In your backup, you'll see the plan as espoused by the police department, which Sergeant Van Ness and Chief Spitzer both briefed us in past meetings. We had requested a meeting with the Board of Education, and about a week ago, myself, Mr. Cotaro, Sergeant Van Ness met with Superintendent Larry Reynolds and the BA, Marge Conroy from the schools, and we did get the okay from the schools. They are very comfortable with this with the safety plan as proposed by the police department. The superintendent was very happy with the thoroughness and the follow-up of the plan created by both the chief and Sergeant Van Ness. We broached the topic of possibly cost sharing. Just to keep council up to date, we intend on approaching the business committee meeting on June 18th, next week at the Board of Ed, and just trying to see if they'd be able to share the costs. The superintendent was very receptive to that overture, so we anticipate getting some assistance recommended from the business committee. As you can see, the costs to do the comprehensive plan are about $11,000, and that includes Denville line painting, the signage that Sergeant Van Ness had recommended, as well as some enforcement mechanisms of which we feel is very important. The speed counters, those speed radar signs, which are highly mobile, but they'd be concentrated on the Quarry Road area, especially in the area of the school. So we're seeking to split those costs. We anticipate and hope the school board would be amenable to that, and we plan on visiting them next week and seeing if we can obtain their cooperation. Our intent is to get this work done early August, no later than the first or second week, well ahead of school.
Just
the
so
cost that you
before
have-
school starts.
Yes,
The cost that you have highlighted here, that is the total cost and not our half, if we were envisioning half?
that's the entire cost, about $11,000, $11,985 is the total cost. We're hoping to see if the school board would share some of that with us.
And the speed radar sign, that is mobile or movable?
Those are mobile, yeah. They attach to telephone poles. They have the radar unit on them, and they're very effective according to the police department.
Anybody else, any questions? I mean, I'd like to commend you. It is definitely a comprehensive plan. Do we have on here the amount of time it takes once we start working on it?
Yeah.
I don't believe it's on there, but Denville Line Painting, Sergeant Van Ness already had contacted them for available dates, and they could be in within 14 days of our contracting them. They're on a state contract, so it's not an issue of getting quotes or going through bids. So it's just approving the work and getting it scheduled and done. As a fallback, I would note that if we fail to get any improvement or cooperation from the school board on this, we forego the speed signs and we just concentrate on the road improvements that the police department had suggested. We go ahead unilaterally.
Okay. All right, sounds good to me. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. Whether I would have mitigated the accident that happened, it's hard to say, but I'm pretty sure it did. But in the event, I think it would mitigate any future possibilities of any accidents occurring at that intersection.
And if any of the governing body is interested in accompanying us next week, more than welcome to join us. It's June 18th.
Yeah,
July.
July
18th, I knew that.
Yeah, my time machine isn't working. I'm sure you'll email us on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our resolutions. We have 7 resolutions. Does anyone have any questions, comments on any of the resolutions presented? Okay, seeing none, we're on to ordinances. There are 3 up for discussion. One of them is for the electronic message sign, and then the other one is for the permit of the seasonal sponsorship sign. Before the meeting, you were asked a question, Mr. Semru, regarding the language of that ordinance. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, the question was asked about the definition of seasonal sponsorship signs, and it's a good question from the standpoint it says here is proposed shall be defined as a non-commercial advertising sign that shall be permitted to be displayed. And on the face, it may raise a question about, well, how are we going to put a commercial entity's name on a sign, and that all of a sudden, how's that going to be a non-commercial type sign? But what we also have is the policies. Just above it, it talks about the fact that the sponsorship signs are to comply with the Recreation Department policies and guidelines, which we've also attached. And when you look at the policies, guidelines, and I think we should we should suggest that we make it just a little more clear. But I think what we're trying to do is keep them uniform, to say, look, here's the name of the sponsor. I don't know if they permit the phone number or the address, but nothing, to be very consistent and sort of non-commercial, very, very consistent. So my suggestion would be that as defined, provided it goes back to the policy, I think it would be fine. But I do think in order to tie this in more clearly, when I go to the actual policy, I'd like to make a suggestion, and I'll send it over to Recreation. I'll have it back before final, that just sets forth. I want to make sure I understand their intent, because the way I read it would be that they just want all the sponsorship signs to be very consistent, and sort of, vanilla from the standpoint of the entity's name and the sponsorship, and no slogans and things like that. But
And that, honestly, that's one of the contentions that I have with making it so vanilla, because it reduces the effect of actually being advertising, and it would make the possibility for the sports organizations to not receive the best bang for the buck. I'm sure some of us have probably gone into Turkey Brook, and before you come in on the left-hand side, there are donation signs.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you have noticed, what companies are on there, but it's white background, back letters. I didn't know my company name was up there till like about a month after it was up there. I was driving in, I finally noticed it was there. So, I understand the Recreation Department's intention and goal to not make it look like, was it Ryder Road over in another township? But I think we're gonna, if we keep it to this, size, that's definitely gonna mitigate that factor from happening. But if we prevent a company from putting in their logo or their color or their typeset, it negates the purpose of allowing these sports organizations to have that kind of advertising. And just bear in mind that those advertising signs will not be facing the roadway. It'll be facing inside, into the infield, where it'll have the least impact on the surrounding residents. So,
well, my suggestion would be, I don't want to speak for Recreation, and I would think they know what would be consistent with some of their goals. So my suggestion would be for me to go and have a more clear, defined understanding as to what their parameters would be, and then bring it back to you before final adoption, so that if you want to leave that recommendation to Recreation, it ultimately comes back to you. But perhaps the question's raised, and it's better that we do know exactly what the parameters would be.
What would be the problem if we just eliminate the word non-commercial and just say seasonal sponsorship signs shall be defined as advertising signs that shall be permitted to be displayed in the township's parks, and everything's according to. Why do we even have to add commercial, non-commercial, advertising signs?
Well, I think, again, we're still going to go back to this policy, and we're going to need some input from Recreation to make sure we understand. Because no matter what we do to the ordinance, Recreation could come back and say they do want them to be sort of consistent or vanilla, or they really, it's not
right.
Disruptive.
And I think what would happen if we eliminate the non-commercial language there in the ordinance, later on if we change it, we do not have to come back and change an ordinance. We can just, if it needs to be changed, it can be done on a policy level within the administration, which could, this year it could be vanilla. A couple of years from now, it could be, chocolate and strawberry. So
well, that's true. But I would,
since the ordinance refers back to the Recreation Department's policies, just by eliminating that line, non-commercial, we're allowing advertising signs, and it's all falling back to the Recreation policy. I think that'll cover what the intention was.
No, but you see, when I go to the policy, it says commercial advertising signs are not permitted, and then it talks about these type of sponsorship signs. So my suggestion would be this has been coordinated with the guidelines. So why not go ahead with introduction, and I'll find out if we could distinguish or clarify these questions. Hopefully, we can do that right in the policy. And if it necessitates changing the language as you suggest, we can do that before final adoption. But I really see it as part and parcel with the policy guidelines that rec has put together. And I really think that all that's necessary is for recreation to come back with just a more defined parameters for these signs, and then if it's okay with the governing body, you can adopt the ordinance because it'll go part and parcel. But
Sean, is the language of non-commercial sign, is that based on any hindrance from any Green Acres or anything like that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I mean, look, the sports organizations have been waiting a long time to be allowed to do this, so I definitely don't want to hold it up another meeting. I would definitely like to introduce it as presented, with my sole intention of, having it changed on a policy level. Does anybody have any questions?
yeah, you take the vote. So we're going to go.
Well,
the recommendation, the
well,
consensus is to go ahead, and I'll get that feedback in the interim.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. The only other ordinances?
I guess, while we're on this, so it doesn't sort of go back and forth, is there an overall preference? We heard sort of the vanilla, and you heard the more latitude, and maybe, instead of getting something back and then punting it back, maybe I should at least know what the consensus is.
Get some idea.
Yeah, so.
Ms. Leibau?
Yeah, I'm thinking that they might be saying non-commercial, thinking that they don't want to have the address and the telephone number of the sponsor, and that could be what they're meaning commercial. But besides that, I agree with Alex in terms of having everything that's maybe black lettering on a white sign doesn't really do the sponsorship that much good. Having their logo, a lot of times people just, see the logo and they know exactly what it is. Like, we know Mount Olive Township, we know what our logo is. It doesn't have to say Mount Olive Township. We know what that means. So that might even be better if they're able to have their logo on there, their brand. So I would like to see that allowed.
Mr. Mayor?
I agree with Alex.
Can you speak up louder, please?
I think Alex has it right. Let's keep it as broad and as we can. Let's push it through, and we'll deal with it as it comes down the pike.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know the intention of the Rec Advisory Committee is to make it a more sponsorship kind of sign like you see at the entrance of Turkey Brook. That is definitely not an avenue that I would like to go, and I know from here from the sports organizations, they don't want to go that route either, but they'll take whatever they can so that they can get funding. Because there's both football, softball, and baseball have a lot of plans, and they've been making a lot of improvements to our parks. I don't know if you've been down to Dan Jordan. I mean, they've added tons of improvements over there, and that's all stuff that for the most part they're paying for, and they envision more improvements to come, and they need this as a way to help them. Mr. Nicastro, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say that, I don't want to step on their toes if whatever they want, but I think they would be wise to listen to, not the council per se, but other business people in town and find out. Maybe they did and they're happy and they have enough sold. But, ultimately I agree to put a sponsorship sign up. I mean, I even disagree with not having your phone number or something up there. I'm paying enough money, people want to, but if this is what they've sold, it's fine. If they feel they can sell them, then it's their choice, and let them make the decision. But I think they need some input maybe from some business people if they haven't. Would you buy one of these sponsorships, and if not, why? Because, like you said, Alex, I believe they'll end up with being surprised that people won't pay the money just to have a yellow sign up with the name of the business and nothing else.
Yeah, haven't spoken with some of the members of baseball that are local business owners that do not only sponsor teams but are looking forward to advertising. They were all excited about it, but when I pointed out to them that your sign would be black letters on a white background, in
They weren't happy.
in Helvetica.
Yeah.
They weren't too keen on that. But let's move this through, and with the intent of making it as business friendly as possible. Okay, we're on to our first old business. Does anyone have any old business?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Leibau.
Yeah, one thing, I'm sorry, I skipped over this when we were talking about resolutions. I just wanted to say that I think this Adopt a Spot program is an excellent new program that we have going, and maybe Mr. Canning could tell us a little bit more about it so everybody's aware of how
Sure.
fantastic it actually is?
No, it's not. It's different than Adopt a Spot.
Well, they put it under the Adopt a Spot
Yeah,
program
but
guide.
it's not really Adopt a
that's-
Spot, it's really something quite different.
Yeah, that's why I wanted a little bit more explanation on it.
It's a catchy phrase.
Mhm.
The program itself came from internal discussions with the mayor, Sherry, myself, Lisa Pignataro, and we recognized some constraints on the part of what the township can provide, and in particular our parks, public buildings and grounds department. He's overstretched between trying to keep up with Flanders and Turkey Brook, so Lisa Pignataro had approached the mayor and I and had the idea of getting some sponsorship for some different areas. And knowing the local public contract law, we were able to get a legal opinion from Mr. Simrau's office. So in a nutshell, what it is, it comes under concessions. And the gist of it is we're able to trade off some work. Like we have a sponsor for ITC South, which is going to be starting hopefully next week. That's a 1 mile stretch of median roadway, which normally we have to pull personnel and equipment off of either Turkey Brook, Flanders, or the utilities. We're responsible for cutting the sewer and water pumping station. So we got to take personnel off of that and spend money and maintain ITC South with one quick cut. Hopefully it looks nice and we keep it going. So in exchange, we have a sponsor that signed up that's going to basically use that as their showcase. Now, they don't build the town for their labor and material. They can put flowers there as long as it's within the police department's okay, that we don't have a view obstruction. So the sponsor we have, and I don't have the name at the top of my head, I apologize.
Harold?
They can use that as their showcase. In return, we're going to put up signs along there that this location was sponsored by, XYZ landscaping company. So that's how it works, and we're hoping to not only do ITC South, the entrance to Briarhurst we've identified, the Baptist Church on the corner when construction is done there, the routine mowing there. On the resolution you see tonight, the buildings at Turkey Brook are certainly in need of painting. Jim Lynch, as great a job as he does, he doesn't have the time nor the materials currently to put up scaffolding and have his 5 men paint the buildings. So we're going to go out and try to get sponsors on that. In return, we'll put up sponsor signs that Acme Painting or whatever the company may be sponsored and did this. We'll put the signs for a period of 1 to 2 years. So in exchange for that service, we're certainly under the concession part of the local public contract law. We're killing 2 birds with 1 stone and not increasing a cost to the taxpayers.
Yeah, because I think over at Turkey Brook, the main building by the baseball fields, that's getting a little bit of impact on the side. The sidings have been broken in areas. And that would be a great spot for, say, a construction company to say, yeah, we fixed this.
Yeah, we're hoping to, that's in the reso packet tonight, we're hoping to accomplish that.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Mr. Mania.
Sean, have we thought maybe college students, hire them during the summer months to do painting like that?
We get a couple now through Clean Communities. Mr. Quinn gets a couple now, but we could check our budget and see our Clean Communities grant and see what's available. We're going to try to do that in-house with the painting, but the problem is getting scaffolding. Jim Lynch had reached out to the county parks. They have 2 sets, and currently they're both being used. About a month ago, that was one of the options. I can always revisit it if the private industry doesn't come through for us. We still have some time between now and when the weather turns.
Just one quick thing, on the ITC South, there's a fire hydrant that's, you can't see anymore. The grass is growing right over the top of it. I think we need to address that.
Anybody else for old business?
Just one more thing.
Yes.
Mr. Kenny, did you have a chance to check out that tree that on the corner of Link Road and International South?
I didn't. Mr. Quinn was on that. I believe he's got the tree contractor scheduled to take care of that.
Okay, good, because
After me and you had spoke, he went up that afternoon to evaluate it.
yeah, because another resident actually contacted me and said the same thing, and I said, yep, we're already on it.
I can check. It's in the iWork system. I can find out the scheduled status
Okay,
of that.
great, thank you.
Okay. New business. Okay. All right. So at this moment, I'd like to go to the first public portion. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard? Thank you.
Okay, Neil Paley, Eagle Rock Village. I've lived in Eagle Rock Village for 26 and a quarter years, and for 37 years, I've been a bicycle, more to the point, a mountain bike rider. Now, on May 12th, I was going bike riding, and I approached the intersection of Wolf Road and Cassidy Road, and there's a stop sign on there, of course. And what I did, as I usually do, is I looked left, looked right, looked left, looked right, and then listened to my ear. Nothing there, so I attempted to make a left turn. Well, what happened was I got hit by a car, and fortunately nothing was broken, but I did have a bunch of scrapes, and I needed stitches, and my left leg blew up, and I couldn't walk for a while. Now, I make this point because of the 2 kids who died a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what the date. I'm sure you people do know what the date is, but from either end of the intersection of Wolf Road and Cassidy Road, it's blind. Both ends. So what I am suggesting is that instead of having that single stop sign at Cassidy Road, why cannot you have a stop sign at both the intersection of Cassidy Road on both sides? In other words, make it a 3-way stop sign, and then put the recommended number of feet back, the yellow stop sign with the arrow to say that there is a stop sign coming up. Rob, do you know of any statistics on accidents at that corner?
At that particular corner, I don't, but since I've been involved, I'm not aware of any. Yours is the first, but we'll refer to the police department for feedback.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments? Because I think, well, let's put it this way. The 2 kids that died, if they had stopped at that stop sign, they certainly wouldn't have been able to gather up that amount of speed.
Well, Neil, unfortunately, first of all, I'm glad that, your injuries were minor. Thank God for that. I listened to the scanner. It's going on what, almost a year and a half, 2 years. So just based on that listening, I would say that intersection there has probably had little to no accidents that I can recall. The accidents happened more on Old Wolf Road and 46, and obviously Wolf Road and 46.
Well, quite obviously that has more traffic.
Right.
But I'm saying that going either way, either towards the middle school or towards Route 46, it's blind. It's blind in both directions. You have no idea who's at the top there.
And I do recall going through there, and I can see where the visibility is minimal, and I would definitely like to see at least the police department or Sergeant Van Ness at least look at that spot. See
but you people will admit that it would have saved those kids.
Oh, that's right.
I cannot speculate as to whether.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah, who knows what would have happened.
Okay. Anyway, so
we'll refer that to the police department, and we'll make sure that somebody gets back to you when that's going to be further discussed in terms of. They'll look at the number of accidents at that intersection and give us a suggestion as to whether or not they think that's an appropriate measure to implement.
But all I know is probably 1 foot or 2 in either direction, and I would be listed as a statistic. I was just very, very lucky that nothing big happened. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Ireland, 6 Hour Court. On the two topics, the traffic safety plan for the school, is that available to the public?
Should be right there it should be on the table.
The answer is yes.
No.
Thank you. And just in passing comment about the sign, I don't think I'm a big fan of the sign. As a taxpayer, I get very nervous when I hear, let's increase the bond ordinance. We may not use the money. Call it my fiscal conservatism. I tend to, view, particularly, never mind my wife, particularly government, when they say, let us have the money, we may not spend it, they'll spend it.
We already have the money. It's not
You
a
have the
question
money?
of, yeah, we have the money. We're not looking to spend it. We're just looking to further delineate as to what we might spend.
And why do you need to
We didn't
increase the bond
increase the ordinance. We reappropriated money that was for another project.
Oh, okay. I take it back.
Okay.
We're not looking to increase what we had already budgeted.
Yeah.
Thank you. On the same topic, though, When you were talking, one of the suggestions earlier, about, which I, if one has to do a sign, I tend to agree with. I think Joe mentioned about getting a sponsorship under the sign. Is that sort of like the sign on 206 going up north that says, actually, Mr. Dorsey's firm? Is that what you're talking about? It says,
Possibly, yes.
okay, because I was, you know, it has, I guess he paid for the sign on 206, but I kind of noted that the council tonight said something like that would have to go out to bidding. Did that go out to bid, that sign on 206?
I think those signs were part of the Pride Committee, right? Didn't the Pride Committee sell those signs?
Yeah, I think that was different.
Yeah.
you know.
But it has his name on underneath the sign.
I don't think that we actually spend money on those signs. I think those signs were paid in full by whoever sponsors. So you didn't need to go out to bid. This is a much larger sign that we'd be looking at, even if we went with the wood sign and those little signs, number one. And number two, as I said, we are getting some money back from insurance. I don't know the exact number for the old sign that we had, and although it's not appropriate for record for a replacement sign, because you can't take
No,
money
it's a big
and
sign
go
at the
into
sewage treatment plant.
into
Oh, that
surplus used. There is money coming back from the sign that we already had, so any expenditure would, or could, one could say that we're using that money, although it's not, you know, take from column A and put into column B kind of thing. So that it might be less, and we might be, for instance, let's say that we go out to bid and we ultimately get a sign for $20,000, and we're gonna do the brickwork ourselves to make it look nice, similar to the way the high school has it.
Right.
And then we already have $14,000 that we already spent, that instead of, we could reappropriate that money next year, perhaps that's when we would do the sign, you know, into a capital ordinance, put it into, it's hard for me to explain because it's not taking directly from A and putting it into B.
Right.
But money is coming back for the sign that we had. And so the general taxpayer is benefiting from the money that we come back in the same way that the taxpayer is paying for the sign that we move forward with.
Another consideration may be, you know, in lieu of spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on signage for a limited number of people going by that, whatever the number is, I don't know what the number is, perhaps investing some of that money and beefing up some sort of another notifications. If the purpose is to get notifications out to the public, there are more technologically current ways of doing that we're probably lacking in the sense of email, you know, some sort of distribution list, reaching out to the public electronically and getting information. You know, the person over down in Flanders Crossing or, you know, in the outskirts of town who may not be going by here is not going to get the message that you want to send them.
I would generally tend to say, although I don't have any empirical data to support it, that there is a large amount of the population that goes by this building on their way to Bud Lake, on the way to the municipal building, on the way to middle school. I don't know how often you go by the building when you're not coming here, but I can tell you that I go by the building all the time when I'm not coming here.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that probably everybody who's sitting here probably goes by the building on a
Yes.
fairly regular basis, because it's...
Scott, here's some pictures of signs if you care to
Oh,
look
see, I mean,
at them.
if you're going to do it, I like the high school sign's a very nice sign. You know.
Yeah, that's here.
Hey, Scott, just the sign that you're referring to on 206, that did go out to bid. Yeah, we leased that sign, and it's not until
Oh, the
2016
big
where
one.
we can go back out to get somebody else on that sign.
Which sign are you talking about? The large...
The one
The
by
Pride
Clover
Committee.
Hill treatment
Pride-
plant,
Pride
the
treatment
big
plant,
one, that's in the flower bed thing?
Right.
All right, does anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn to the public meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I'd like to call to order the Township Council public meeting of July 10th, 2012. Lisa, can you please read the Open Public Meetings Act announcement?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakes Town Road, Mount Olive Township, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call.
Mr. Perkins? Mr. Mania?
Here.
Mr. Frente?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Walsh? Mrs. Labow?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here. Okay, we're on to approval of previous minutes. The public meeting for June 26th. Mr.
The
Mania?
absence of Mr. Perkins, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
That's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Okay, we're on to correspondence. There are 35 pieces of correspondence. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we're on to ordinances for public hearing. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 20-2012 entitled, "An Ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive amending ordinance number 30-2010 of the Township of Mount Olive entitled Salaries of Certain Non-Union Employees." Mr. Mania.
Mr. President, I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 20-2012.
Second?
Been moved in second. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard? Okay, seeing none, anyone on any council discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
And Mr. Roman?
Yes. Ordinance number 20-2012 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 21-2012 entitled, "Bond Ordinance Providing for Upgrades to the Indian Spring Well House in and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $95,000 thereof and authorizing the issuance of $90,250 bonds or notes of the township for financing the cost thereof." Mr. Ferrante?
I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 21-2012.
Second?
Moved in second. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, council discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Ordinance number 21-2012 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 24-2012 entitled, "An Ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, setting the speed limit on Corey Road at 25 miles per hour and to be incorporated into Chapter 245 of the Mount Olive Township Code." Mr. Nacastro?
I'm sorry, I didn't know if there was someone. I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 24-2012.
I second it.
It's been moved in second. Anyone from the public?
May I?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Scott Ireland, 6 record again. When I was here, I missed the previous meeting for the first reading. When I was here about the meeting, the larger discussion over the accident and tangentially the speed issue. I did commend the council on the due diligence they were spending on the intersection issue. That said, I'm kind of curious as to the due diligence that's been done on the speed issue, because I would love to hear the criteria and the data that the council is using to support dropping the speed limit from 35 to 25. As I understand it, and perhaps I'm mistaken, the police safety officer has said a change is not warranted on that road. I'd like to know, I have a couple of questions I'd like to know. I'd like to know what, if the council is aware, or they could tell me, I'm sure you're all familiar with the 85th percentile speed guideline. Mm-hmm. If the council could tell me what the 85th percentile speed is on that road.
It is my recollection that the 85th percentile was around 35, 37 miles per hour. So the traffic on there is already traveling within the said speed limit, with the occasional 2 to 3% going above the 45 mile an hour, based on my recollection.
Right.
Ms. Laybow?
I think it was more than that.
And typically that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that guideline, the 85th percentile speed percentile, is used as a base. What the theory is that 85% of those people speeding at that speed limit, at 36 to 35 to 37, whatever it was, is the kind of de facto safe speed for any particular road. And I'm curious as to the specific criteria that the council is using as a justification to drop it from that speed.
Ms. Lebo?
They, in 1 week's time, and it's off season basically for this, school's not as busy the week that they did it. They had 9,500 cars go over the mechanism they put in the road. And there was, there was a large number that went between the 31 and 45, which is the 85 percentile. Then there was another couple thousand that went the next one, which was 40 plus. Then there was about 200 that went over 45.
Could you break that down?
I don't have it with me. I do have that at home, so I could actually, I'll send it to you.
If 85,
I'll send it to you.
If 85% are doing the 35 to 37, that's, studies have shown that that's the safe speed limit for the road.
The problem is, in my opinion, first of all, the residents who live right there would prefer the 25. They had asked for that. Second of all, the fact that you just go a little further down the road, it's 25 in front of the high school, and felt that it was more prudent to keep the speed limit consistent across the road than to have it be higher and people going 40, 45, and then have to all of a sudden slow down in a tricky corner.
Is that principle going to be applied to every road in the township then? Because I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that there are other roads that have more than one speed limit on them.
If it was my preference, I'd like to see it that way, absolutely, and I'd like to see every residential street 25.
Is this based on any criteria, though, any data to back this up?
If I may interject, Ms. Lebo, when you earlier just made a statement that the residents wanted that speed limit lowered, if I just make a little clarification, some residents.
I believe it was two or three that were here.
We've never polled the residents of that township, of that area, as to whether half of them, 75% of them, or based on the number that actually came out and were vocal, if it's more along the line of less than 1% wanted to lower that speed limit. Many times we make here decisions based on professionals, because that's what they do for a living, that is their job. And here we are overriding not only a professional, but a seasoned professional, and one that I, respect highly, not only in his area of expertise, but in his overall job. And we're doing it because it feels right.
It feels right. I have yet to see any objective criteria or hear any objective criteria other than a couple people came and complained. Has anyone on the count? I've driven twice now, north and southbound or east and west, whatever it is, 25 miles an hour. It's painful. You're going to create a problem where, people are going to, be doing the 35 to 37.
Yeah.
I think the one
in blood can always be changed.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we should keep in mind is I understand there's certain standards, but in this particular case, this is different than many other roads in that it involves the school and involves school traffic. And it involves younger drivers. And
are there, excuse me, again, are there accidents or incidents to substantiate what you're saying?
No, I'm saying just alone in its proximity and the way the presentation was made to the governing body, the concern was, and this emanated from the fact of the concern of the school and the drivers.
I'm sorry,
and the young
this
drivers.
Came from the school?
No, I'm saying there was a presentation made here, the meeting you said that you weren't at, and as part of that presentation, it was emphasized of the concern for the younger drivers in the vicinity of this road. So I think there's, sometimes, some of the standards, they cannot necessarily be applied in every particular manner, and there's some extenuating circumstances here.
Mr. Mayor?
I generally try not to disagree with you in public because I always find that I end up on the short stick of the discussion for whatever reason. But I think that your comparison of other roads in the township to this particular road, as we discussed before the meeting, is an unfair comparison in terms of speed limits on portions of the road. Here we have it. Let me finish, please. We have a defined road here. This is not something that goes on for miles and miles and miles. It's a cut-through road. Not for everybody. For some people it's to access their house, but for a lot of people it's a cut-through road that has a school. And when the police department came back with their number in terms of the 85% in their recommendations, they also came back with a recommendation in terms of extending the 25 to a further point down the road. And I can tell you that as I sat here, I thought to myself, well, there really isn't any guideline or any analysis that was done in terms of the speeds that were checked, in terms of moving it down the road to a further point closer to Flanders Netcong Road by the police department as to where to start the 25 mile per hour zone. It was really, well, we think this is perhaps a better spot. It wasn't that people who are at that particular location are not slowing down when they hit the 25 mile per hour zone, which is adjacent to the school. And the sense that I got from the majority of the council was that they thought that the appropriate spot to start slowing people down is the minute that they hit the road, rather than at Victoria or wherever the police department had suggested that the 25 mile per hour speed limit actually be moved to. It wasn't just a situation where the police department said everything is good, let's leave it alone. We did the speed analysis. This police department actually came back and said, we think we should move it further to Victoria. Council came back and said, well, we think we should move it all the way to Flanders Netcong. Drakestown, sorry, thank you. That was
well, again, it just kind of goes back to the debate on whether you go with your safety or your traffic and safety experts. I mean, I don't have an issue with moving it back, moving it all the way, the entire.
Either way, the way the ordinance is written, it would have been, we're disagreeing with the police department regardless, because their recommendation was to move the 25 from the current spot. Right. We're still not doing that. Right. We're doing all the way.
Again, because, I mean, why 25? Why not 20? Is this I mean, is this out of the gut? Can we legislate and make ordinances, that we can maybe take back if it doesn't work in a couple of weeks, or if there's too many tickets being issued?
Mr. Mania?
Yeah.
Well, point of information, state speed limit is 50 highway, 25 residential. And that came from a state employee. So I don't know whether you're aware of that, Scott.
Probably not. Oh, definitely.
I just found that out recently. State speed limits, 50 highway, 25 residential. That's state.
Well, at the local level, I would hope we would have listened to our local experts, but maybe not.
Mr. Mayor?
There's something about listening to the local experts. I think what council did was went a little bit further in terms of reducing what they believe to be the risk on the road. And so I'm not sure that by going further they've absolutely disregarded. I don't think it was the decision of the police department that you shouldn't change it to 25, the length of the road. The decision of the police department is you should only change it so far. It wasn't that they came back and said if you change it the entire length, you're going to have a safety issue on the rest of the road. I'm
comfortable with the theory of reducing risk.
Yes.
Well, what I'm asking is, show me the risk. Show me the data that is exhibiting that is showing that there is a high risk of something happening on that road related to speed.
I'm not sure that the police department, when they came back and said let's move it to Victoria from where it's currently situated, really had anything more than what council did in terms of saying let's move it to the end of the road itself.
It's an interesting argument. Then we don't need the police department at all for.
I don't know that that's necessarily a corollary that you can draw.
It certainly sounds like it.
Mr. DeCastro?
Scott, part of the thing for me was that I understood it's a slow. I've rode there at 25 and I understand what it's like. But ultimately, it was also the fact that we have children that cross that road a lot, and before something happened, the police were going to move it back anyway. So as Rob said, it's easier. We moved it all the way back, so there is no problems, but it was a consideration of the kids as well. The data, I can't say I have all the data that showed anything, but before something happened, that was one of our big concerns as well, was that a child could cross that street. These cars are doing 40 and 50, some of them, and the trucks and all that come through. And it is a school zone, it is a residential area, and it is a cut through. If you choose not to go that way, then someone can go down the road and go around the other way. If they want to try and go faster, that's fine. But that was really the reasoning, was looking at all of it, it wasn't just a feel-good feeling, as the president says. It's not the reason why I ultimately voted, because I feel great about it. I'm not going to feel great doing 25 down there, trust me, but it is what it is, and I think it'll help in the long run and hopefully save any potential problems. That's
Mr. Ferrante?
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they gave the presentation, and I believe I even asked a question with the sidewalks, that the sidewalks aren't consistent on that road. especially where their recommendation of going from 35 to 25 was. I think it switched sides of the road. So that was my concern as well, was keep it consistent at least, because you're going to have kids that would have to cross the road at some point because the sidewalks ended.
Well, just bear in mind, the number of pedestrians, and I'm assuming we're talking about kids that are crossing that road in order to get to the high school, is probably in the area of 10 to 20 at the most.
And the number doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter.
And that's it's all well and good. If the number doesn't matter, then we're not basing it on statistics. Ms. Laybow, then Mr. Mayor.
Scott, one of the numbers, which I told you I'll send it to you, there was 187 that were going in excess of 45 miles per hour on that road. And I got to tell you, that really scares me to think that somebody's going that fast. It's not a speedway, it's a residential street. The other thing I thought was really important was the fact that we have a lot of activities going on at the high school. We have a lot of people coming from out of the area, and if they're coming from the Flanders, Drakestown end, and they're driving down there, they don't know that it's going to be changed to 25. They're going to be trying to find it. So do we have the actual data that you're asking about? No, but you also got to know the area. You got to know what goes on there. As you do, you live there.
Your argument for against people doing 50, is very valid. But that's an enforcement issue of 35, of a speed limit of 35. I got whacked, for doing. I don't know what he did.
The whole thing is we kept talking about if the speed limit's 35, people are going to go 45. It's 25, they're going to go 35. And if we can, rather, and John Mania actually had a really good point when he said that, we don't want to be reactive. We don't, if something happens because of speed and we don't act on this now, we can't go back and
forgive ourselves.
And I just think it's not an emotional decision. It was well thought out. We discussed it at length. We all drove up there, tried the 25 miles. We all know the area really well, so we didn't just make the decision. We thought about it, did our due diligence, and this is what we've decided to do.
Mr. Mayor?
I think at the end of the day, Scott, if it doesn't work, it can be changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there's significant outcry and it doesn't serve a purpose in terms of slowing people down on the road, it can be changed.
And I might just add, I think I understand your point better now after this discussion. You're not really saying you for or against it. You're just trying to understand what the parameters were and what the basis is for that.
Again,
and I think it's a case where sometimes we can't always say to a client that, often clients say, look, I'm stuck, I have to do A, B, and C. But I think maybe based on your question, a record was made at least as far as why the governing body feels the way they do about this ordinance and why they want to make this policy. And I can understand your question isn't I'm against it or for it. To me, it sounded like, well, how do you do this?
Yeah.
But I also think it's good because I think they made a record tonight about why they'd like to make this decision.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, I am against the 25, like I said, but I'm more against what I see as a kind of a questionable process of how we make a decision without,
Mr. Mayor?
I just have a question for you based upon a conversation that we had earlier.
Was that off the record? Was that off the record?
It was off the record, but now we're on the record, so. How did they make the decision that a ship of 100 feet required a river pilot, but a ship of 95 feet didn't require a river pilot?
I'm sure there was a load of criteria that made that they were able to make that determination.
One more thing.
Ms. Laybow?
And also, Scott, one other thing I just wanted to point out is that we didn't just come up with this decision. The police went out and they counted the cars and they measured the speed and did a whole week on that. It wasn't just the decision that was made. It was, we received, the residents and everything. So it was a very well thought out process. It wasn't just all of a sudden done. And when the residents came here a month ago, pretty much one of the problems that they were saying was the speed. People live right on Quarry Road, and they wanted to know what kind of affirmative action could be taken right away. And the cheapest, quickest thing we could do to try and help reduce any kind of traffic possibilities there was to reduce the speed. I thought it was a good idea to move forward with that.
All right, well, just to bear in mind that this all came about because of an accident that was caused by sunlight, not at all anything but caused by speed. And I do hope that if it is our intention to pass this ordinance to lower the speed limit on that road, that the administration will direct the police department to enforce said speed limit. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
No. Ordinance number 24-2012 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Okay, we're on to ordinances for first reading with a second reading of July 24th, 2012. All right, the next item for first reading is ordinance number 23-2012, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 176-8 of the Code of the Township of Mount Olive to permit seasonal sponsorship signs in the Township of Mount Olive's parks. Ms. Laybow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 23-2012 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on July 24, 2012 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available the said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Council discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Okay, next item is ordinance number 25-2012, entitled Bond Ordinance Amending Section 3H of Bond Ordinance 13-2012 of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey, finally adopted April 24, 2012, in order to provide for the acquisition of a sign for the municipal building. Mr. Ferrante.
I move that ordinance number 25-2012 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on July 24th, 2012 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders, Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of a second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of law.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Council discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mania? Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Okay. Next item for first reading is ordinance number 26-2012, entitled Ordinance Appropriating $32,850, $6,570 of which is from the Open Space Trust Fund, and $26,280 of which is from the Morris County Historic Trust Fund for the Seward House Preservation Plan and construction documents in and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris. Mr. Mania.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance 26-2012 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on July 24, 2012 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Okay, we're on to consent resolutions. We have 7. Does anyone wish to move any to non-consent? I will move number 5 to non-consent. Mr. Ferrante, would you move the consent resolutions?
I move consent resolutions 1 through 4 and 6 and 7.
Second.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on the consent resolutions? Seeing none, any council comments? Roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. All right, Ms. Laybow, would you move non-consent number 5?
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, I'd move non-consent resolution number 5.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, council discussion? All right, the reason I moved this to non-consent is obviously you've heard my previous opposition to the use of eminent domain in order to get ourselves out of a bind that the state has pushed us into. And with that, I'll entertain a roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Fuente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
No. Okay, we're on to consent motions. Mr. Nacastro?
I move consent motions 1 and 2.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. Does anyone have any questions from the public on the bill list? Motions? Seeing none. Any counsel? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Fuente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
I abstain from check number 61861 and yes to all else.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Okay, we're on to administrative reports. Mr. Canning.
Couple things. The first is just an update on the Flanders Road vault. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with the engineer, as well as Mr. Quinn. I believe Mr. Maney is going to attend, and Mr. Rutledge. The concern there is, as we've been monitoring, that the hinges have broken. We have somebody from the company coming out tomorrow to evaluate and replace the hinges. In the meantime, I have directed the engineer, Mr. Buzinski, to start the process of getting a manhole fabrication, as we spoke about several months ago. The estimated cost of that is between $5,000 and $10,000, as per his report back in March and April. But we do have some serious reservations as to long-term viability of the vault doors. It's
If I may-
July, and this replacement, I believe, was back in the March-April meeting. It's 4 months into it, so we have some serious reservations as to the long-term viability of this project.
If I may channel Mr. Perkins, I told you so. Mr. Mania.
I spoke to Mr. Rutledge the other day and asked him how things were there, and he says, there's noise, I guess I have to live with it. I said, I don't think you have to live with it. You know, we have to do the right thing. And I spoke to Mr. Canning, and he had indicated that there was going to be a meeting tomorrow morning, and I said to him I'd like to attend, and I think we need to replace that period. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know.
And his Mr. Rutledge's problem is, he said, if I ever want to sell my house, you know, and I have this problem, I could face a problem trying to get rid of my house. And I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, many times we're faced with residents that have been impacted through no fault of their own, but through actions that are not caused by us. And this is not definitely one of those cases. We caused this gentleman harm or allowed it to happen, so we must do whatever we have to do in order to make him whole. Ms. Laybow?
Yes, I drive by there frequently, and I've noticed the noise is getting louder and louder and louder. Even 4 days after it was put in the last time, and I told Mr. Canning I was concerned because first I heard nothing, and then 4 days later I heard something. So it's been getting louder and louder, so I was also going to call Mr. Rutledge and see how it was going, because I was really concerned about that.
And Mr. Rutledge is a gentleman.
He is,
really,
yeah.
truly
Him and
is.
his wife,
I
Kay,
mean,
they're such nice people.
He's not a complainer.
No, not at all.
He said, I guess I have to live with it. And that's not,
But no, and I
that's
don't
not
even.
the answer.
I don't even know if the man. I just wonder if we're just like putting another Band-Aid on by doing the manhole cover. I mean, we do have the option to move it off
Well, the
the
manholes
road.
are a proven thing. I mean, we have them throughout the state, and they work.
Yeah, I don't know
It's
if
not
there's
something that's a new thing.
The alternative is well over $100,000 price tag. to
Yeah, that's the
relocate
problem,
that,
yeah,
and
to
the
relocate it.
likelihood of sincere likelihood of litigation.
How did it go with? Did we get the electronic monitoring so our guys don't have to go down into it to read the monitors yet?
I know Mr. Quinn was supposed to have that done. I'm not sure if that's in place or not. I'm assuming it was, because they haven't been in there recently, but I'd have to verify that.
Because even though we haven't had a lot of rain, I was also wondering if we're still getting water in there, in the vault.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can check tomorrow morning with Mr. Quinn.
Anything else, Mr. Canning?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I kept council apprised of that. I found out about this late yesterday, so I thought it was important to keep you abreast of the ongoings. Two other items. The soccer field installation, as soon as the carnival's done, and we'll get to the carnival in a second, the soccer field pre-construction meeting is on Thursday. We're hoping to break ground on that as early as next week, and the lighting as well. So those projects are, as of now, moving along without incident. And lastly, the carnival is all set to go tomorrow night. I want to commend both Jill Dagan and Jim Lynster staff have been working round the clock to make sure that this is a success. So they deserve a lot of accolades.
All right. Okay, we're on to the last old business. New business. Legal matters.
The only thing I would report is next week we're going to close on the sale of the BASF property, as everything's in order, the 57 acres. And the only other thing I want to mention is, I was in court last week, and there was a municipality that will remain nameless. This was actually 2 weeks ago that had an issue with their minutes. Their executive session minutes hadn't been done for quite some time. I'm talking about maybe up to a year. And, sometimes we just overlook things. And, the fact is your minutes are up to date from the last meeting, and they've been current as far as I can remember. And I can't tell you about some of the horror stories you read about and you see in court, because there's fees not only for your own attorney for the township, but you pay for the plaintiff's attorney as well. So those are costs that you just don't, as a township, have to endure because you're up to date. So I just wanted to bring that up. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to council reports. Mr. Canning, you already touched on the carnival. I look forward to the return of the carnival, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I will be participating in getting dunked for baseball. I'm not going to tell you what time.
Oh, come on.
And that
9
is
to 10 on Thursday.
Let me Twitter that one with you. All right, we're on to legislative. Nope, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Walsh are both absent, along with Planning Board, Education. Mr. Ferrante, open space.
Nothing for open space. Library is actually meeting right now. Just a couple announcements at the library. They continue to have many events throughout the summer for adults and children. I actually attended the Rizzo's Reptiles were at the library a couple of weeks ago. They had maybe about 30 or 40 kids were there with their families. Really good time, and that's about it.
Good. Mr. Nicastro?
No meeting scheduled yet on economic or the safety.
Okay, Mr. Mania.
Well, we have the senior picnic coming up, and I guess the seniors want to play some bocce ball. I signed up.
Yes, I think everybody has responded.
And Colleen's signed up, right? But you need a little help.
Yeah, I'm going to go practice next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to read up to see what is bocce. I was thinking
That's what I said,
we
too.
should all get matching T-shirts. Let's.
Well, see, I'm not
just bring it
sure.
on.
I'm not sure, John. Are we going as council or senior citizens? Since we're and Joe too.
No.
Oh, you're not yet.
No. I may look it, but I'm not a senior yet. They gave me the ARP card, but I'm not
okay.
there.
That's right. 50.
What's the age?
55
Yeah, no,
to join the
not
senior
there
citizen.
yet.
Yeah, you're
As soon
just.
as the Grecian formula runs out, then we'll be able to see.
Oh, Grecian.
No, but I've been wanting to learn how to play bocce ball, so I'm going to go up and
It's
practice.
fun. It really and truly is.
That's what I heard. It's a lot of fun. So it's a lot like bowling. I heard.
Okay. Well, then we're doomed for failure.
Hey, I was going to be a pro bowler many years ago.
Yeah, but that's when wooden balls.
It's not really like bowling.
I know they have those wooden
No,
balls.
It's a little different than bowling.
Lisa, you got that?
Okay, we're on to
Verbatim.
Miss
On
Miss
TV.
Laybell. We're on for you.
Alrighty, which one for
Pride
the
and TNR,
Pride?
please.
Nothing to report on Pride and the TNR program. They're looking forward to the carnival, and also with the help of Mr. Canning, they're finally going to be getting into Kings Village, and they've met with the manager there, which is excellent because they get a lot of calls. And they have recovered quite a few kittens there, and they'd like to make sure that we don't have any more kittens there. And hopefully we're going to be moving on to Eagle Rock. So it's a very successful program. They've been very successful in Village Green, too. They recently started a program in Village Green. So, and they have Eagle Rock, or Oakwood Village is totally under control, and the few that they returned, the few cats they returned there have reduced in numbers. So it's a great program, and they continue to save us a lot of money, and it's just a great organization.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're on to our last public portion. See anyone from the public? Okay, seeing none. Council comments. Mr. Mania.
A couple of things. One, I want to thank the administration for bringing the carnival back. Second, anytime I've called Mr. Canning with a problem, he's responded immediately. I mean, I'm really impressed. Accolades to you. And Tim Quinn also. I've called him with a few problems on the roadways where there was holes, and I see within a day or two, they've been repaired, so I thank you.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yeah, I echo those comments, and as a father with 2 young kids and not having the carnival the past couple of years, I guess now, it's been missed, and we're really looking forward to it. And I know a lot of our neighbors and friends in town have felt the same way. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nicastro?
Nothing really, just looking forward to the carnival.
Okay,
You're
Ms.
not going to
Laban.
thank me for the carnival?
I'm thanking the mayor, and yes, very much, thank you, Mayor.
Yes. I want to say also that I'm really happy that the carnival's back. It is a great community event, and I remember when we lost it a couple years ago, my son, who was 20 at the time, he said, "Mom," he goes, "I understand that, times are hard and people are losing their jobs, but that's when the community needs to band together more so and have an event like that." And I think it's absolutely right. You just see a lot of people, and everybody gets to enjoy themselves, enjoy our beautiful park. And also, I just want to make a comment about the speed issue on the roads, and this is just something that's bothered me for many, 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 many years. Every time we have an issue with people driving too fast on the road, we have the residents, they'll come up, they'll say everybody's driving too fast. We'll run tests. About 90% of the people are usually the residents who are going too fast. People want speed bumps, they want the rumble strips or something like that, and I just wish that everybody would just kind of take more responsibility and really recognize that driving is a privilege. Okay, it's not something you just automatically get. It is a privilege, and with that privilege comes a responsibility of driving the speed limit and watching out for the safety of the residents and other drivers. So if everybody just kind of kept that in mind, we'd have a lot less people wanting speed tables or anything else. So that's it.
Well, just to jump on the previous gentlemen have said, and I'll continue with my past practice of not complimenting Mr. Canning because I don't know, his ego, I don't think he can take it. I am glad that the carnival's back. For myself, I pre-purchased the wristband discount band, so I hope to see everybody there, if not at least one, if not all, at least one day. To touch upon what Ms. Leba was saying regarding the speed, I'm sure by now we've all gotten the memo as to what the police has determined is the cause of the fatality for the 2 high school gentlemen. It was a factor of speed and also more than likely the use of a cell phone while driving. All right, but just bear in mind there was a speed limit on that road, and it was violated. So lowering a speed limit is not necessarily going to eliminate accidents. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. This meeting adjourned.
Right?
You gonna make it or what?
No, it's too late.